I never imagined that a single sentence, announced between a bowl of mashed potatoes and a tray of roasted turkey, could split a family apart so violently, so permanently. But that evening, at our Thanksgiving dinner table, my sister, Margaret, lifted her wine glass, cleared her throat as if preparing to make a toast, and declared with pride swelling in every syllable, "Mom and Dad are signing the house to me. You get nothing, Emily. It's only fair." The room froze, forks halted mid-air, my heartbeat turned into a frantic drum, and I felt the kind of humiliation that makes a grown woman feel like a child again. I'm 45 years old, but in that moment, I was instantly reduced to the invisible, unwanted daughter, the one no one fought for, the one constantly told to understand, to be reasonable, to make sacrifices for your sister. She needs more than you do. That was the hook that tore open everything I had kept buried for decades. Growing up, I was always the patient one, the responsible one, the fixer, the daughter who didn't cause trouble. Meanwhile, Margaret, 4 years older, was the dramatic one, the needy one, the gifted one who required the best tutors, the newest clothes, the most expensive summer programs. I wasn't jealous. Not then. I simply accepted that my sister needed more attention, more nurturing, more everything. I learned to step back. To be small. To be the daughter who didn't make demands. But Thanksgiving changed everything. I watched my parents nod along proudly as Margaret spoke, like they were announcing the winner of a competition I never even knew I was in. My jaw tightened, but I forced a smile because that's what good daughters do. They swallow their pain. They stay quiet. They pretend nothing is wrong even when their world trembles beneath them. But that night, something in me cracked, not bitterly, not violently, but in a quiet, decisive way. A shift. A snap. A rebirth. After dinner, when the dishes were cleared and my parents retreated to the living room to watch their ritual holiday movies, I confronted Margaret in the kitchen. She stood with her back to me, scraping leftovers into containers she'd inevitably take home. "Why would you say that in front of everyone?" I asked, my voice steady but cold, the kind of cold that comes from years of swallowed hurt. Margaret shrugged, not even turning around. "Because it's the truth. Mom and Dad decided. You have your own life. I'm the one who took care of them. I deserve the house." That was a lie so bold I almost laughed. Margaret hadn't cared for our parents a day in her life. She lived 30 minutes away and hardly visited unless she needed money, or groceries, or emotional validation. I was the one who took them to doctor's appointments, paid their bills when they struggled, handled emergencies, checked in daily, but none of that mattered. Not to them. And certainly not to her. I went home that night shaking, not from sadness, but from the awakening of something unfamiliar and powerful. I realized I had spent my entire life trying to earn love that was already reserved for someone else. I had played the role of dutiful daughter, quiet sister, problem solver, peacekeeper. And what had it earned me? "You get nothing." Those words echoed in my head all night. By morning, the humiliation had hardened into resolve. If they wanted to cast me aside, then fine. But I wasn't going to walk away quietly. I wasn't going to let them stomp on decades of sacrifices. For the first time in my life, I chose myself. And my revenge began, not with anger, but with strategy. I started by contacting a lawyer, not out of desperation but curiosity. I explained the situation, the years of caregiving, the financial contributions I had made to maintain the home. As it turned out, my parents' house wasn't as straightforward to give away as they believed. Legally, financially, structurally, they had complications they had never bothered to understand. Their mortgage was still partially active due to a refinance they had done years ago. And worse for them, I had been a co-signer on one of their emergency loans, something they had begged me to do during a medical crisis. That loan was legally tied to the property as collateral. Meaning, I had a stake. A legally recognized stake. When the lawyer told me that, I felt the first spark of empowerment warming my chest. But I didn't confront my family. Not yet. Revenge isn't satisfying when it's rushed. Proper revenge, especially when dealing with people who have underestimated you your entire life, requires patience, precision, silence. So I played dumb. I called my mother as usual. I helped my father schedule his cardiology appointment. I kept the facade of the good daughter perfectly intact. Meanwhile, quietly, I gathered every document, every receipt, every record of every payment I had ever made on their behalf. I built my case like a patient architect constructing a cathedral stone by stone. And all the while, Margaret continued flaunting her victory, even posting online about being chosen to inherit the family home because of her loyalty. The comments from her friends, praising her, calling her lucky, only fueled my determination. 2 months later, the perfect opportunity came. My parents called, saying they wanted to finalize the paperwork and make Margaret the official heir. I told them warmly, of course, I'll come over. When I arrived, the three of them were seated at the dining table, papers spread out, pens ready. Margaret smirked the moment I walked in, her face radiating triumph. My mother gestured toward an empty chair. We wanted to be honest with you, Emily. You're more independent. You don't need the house. It was almost funny. I sat down calmly, opened my folder, and placed the legal documents on the table. Before you sign anything, I said softly, you should know that the house legally can't be transferred without my consent. The shock on their faces was exquisite. My father's eyebrows shot upward. My mother's hand flew to her chest. Margaret blinked rapidly like she was buffering. What are you talking about? She snapped. That's when I let my lawyer's words echo through the room. The emergency loan from 3 years ago? The one I co-signed? The property is collateral. My name is legally tied to this house. You can't sell it. You can't transfer it. Not without my signature. Margaret paled, then flushed with rage. You're lying. She hissed. I slid the document toward her. Read it. She skimmed it, her lips trembling, then slammed it down. This doesn't mean anything. Mom and Dad can still choose who they want. That's when I lowered my voice, looked her dead in the eye, and said, they can choose, yes. But they can't act on it. Not unless I agree. I had never seen my sister speechless before. It was delicious. My parents stared at me, confused, desperate, almost betrayed. But for once, I did not feel guilty. Not even a little. I explained that I had no intention of taking the house from them, but I also wasn't going to allow them to cut me out as if I were meaningless. I've supported you emotionally, financially, physically, I said. And you plan to give everything to Margaret without even discussing it with me? Without fairness? Without respect? My voice wavered, not with weakness, but with the release of decades of bottled pain. My father tried to defend their decision, stumbling over words, while my mother muttered about tradition and Margaret needing security. Margaret, infuriated, screamed that I was manipulating them, sabotaging her future. But I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I simply stood up, gathered my documents, and said, handle your affairs however you want. But nothing happens without me. Not anymore. Then I walked out. Over the next few weeks, the tension in the family thickened like fog. My parents left me dozens of guilt-tripping messages. Margaret sent me voice notes filled with insults, crying, pleading, threatening, switching moods like a broken traffic light. I remained silent. Silence is power when you've spent your whole life being the one who bent, adapted, forgave. Silence makes people reconsider everything they took for granted. Soon my parents realized they needed me, not just emotionally, but practically. Their health, finances, and legal issues required support. And Margaret? She couldn't handle any of it. She had never learned to be responsible. She lived her life expecting everything to be handed to her. Without me smoothing the rough edges, her world started collapsing. She began calling me privately, offering to split the house, offering apologies that didn't sound sincere, offering to make peace if I would just let the paperwork move forward. I declined every time. Calmly. Politely. Firmly. Then the final straw snapped. My parents received notice that their refinance terms were changing, meaning they would owe a large payment in a few months. Margaret panicked. She begged them to ask me for help. When they finally did, I met them in their living room, the same room where I had spent countless evenings comforting them, supporting them. I stood in front of them and said, I will help, financially, legally, emotionally. But my support now comes with one condition: fairness. Not favoritism. Not secrecy. Not lies. And so, after hours of uncomfortable truth-telling, my parents finally conceded. They rewrote their will, fairly this time. The house would not go solely to Margaret. Everything would be split between us. Equally. No more, chosen child. No more, Emily doesn't need it. And Margaret? She sat in the corner, arms crossed, eyes burning with resentment but unable to do anything. She had lost. Not because I fought her with anger, but because I fought her with intelligence, boundaries, and the strength she never thought I possessed. That day marked a turning point in my life. For the first time, I wasn't the invisible daughter. I wasn't the shadow behind Margaret's spotlight. I wasn't the quiet one absorbing all the blows. I became someone who stood up for herself, without screaming, without begging, without breaking. I became the woman who finally understood her worth. And that is my story. My revenge wasn't loud, messy, or dramatic. It was quiet. Strategic. I didn't tear anyone down, I simply refused to be walked over ever again. I reclaimed my power, my dignity, my voice. And I did it in a way that Margaret will never forget. Now, every time she looks at that house she believed she would own alone, she remembers the truth: the sister she underestimated is the sister who changed everything. So if you're listening to this right now, take this from me, a woman who spent 45 years letting people decide her worth: stand your ground. Don't let anyone erase you. Don't let anyone tell you that you deserve less. You teach people how to treat you the moment you decide you're done being silent. My sister thought she won when she announced, "You get nothing." But in the end, I got my power back, and that was worth more than any house.